Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. Now, make sure you tune in Wednesday, because Wednesday there are going to be some changes to the show. Primarily, the opening intro to the show is going to change, so make sure you tune in on Wednesday, because Wednesday, not only is Wednesday the Ask Me Anything, Wednesday is also episode 200. And since it's episode 200 and I've had the same music beds pretty much for the last almost 200 episodes, I'm changing things up a little bit, so make sure you tune in. And if you do have any questions for the Ask Me Anything, go ahead, get those sent via email to ama@fppradio.com. And I have several questions already this week, so hopefully I'm able to answer all of them. If I'm not able to, then things will roll over until next week. And I have two follow-up questions, actually, from an AMA from a couple of weeks ago that I forgot to answer this past week. And I don't know why, but for some reason I felt like I was still at PorkFest. I don't really know. Like yesterday, as I was going to bed, I was thinking to myself, wait, how long ago was PorkFest? Oh, wow. Like, I've already been back in Keene for a week. And it's just one of those things to where, like, time flew by so fast because I was so busy trying to catch up with other things that I wasn't able to do while I was at PorkFest. So the follow-up questions actually dealt with the Miracle Grow question that I answered, I think, like 3 weeks ago. So I will answer those this coming Wednesday. Plus, I've got several others that I will try to get through all of them. And anything else that I get, I will try to get to. But again, if I don't, I'll just roll it over to next week. So let me go ahead and jump into the news. And if you've listened to the show or if you've read things that I've written previously, you will know that I'm a huge supporter of the S word. No, not the dirty S word that you are not allowed to say on the radio, but the S word that most people think is one of the most foul words ever, secession. I'm a huge supporter of secession. And one thing that I find kind of ironic is that most Americans are opposed to the ideas of secession because the South. And, well, we fought a war over that. Well, yeah, but, like, there was another war that was fought over it about 80-some-odd years before the second war over secession, and because America won the first one, it, for some reason, is not looked at as secession. And that's exactly what happened when the 13 colonies broke away from the United Kingdom of Great Britain. And now it's the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, but at the time it was just United Kingdom of Great Britain. So what happened was, basically that's what Independence Day is. When you declare independence, you're basically seceding from another entity. Well, there are various reasons why one should secede, or, there's pros and cons to secession. And, well, some of the reasons that people give for secession are better than others. For instance, when the Scottish, the voters in Scotland had their referendum last year, it's hard to believe it's been a year, right? But they had that back in September of last year, and they were wanting to leave Great Britain to establish more socialism. And you know what? If that's what you want to do, go ahead, fine. But basically, the people that voted for secession, and ultimately they were not in the majority, but the people that were voting for this, they felt as though they were being oppressed by the British government because the British government was not allowing them to be as socialist as they wanted to be. So they wanted more autonomy. And, like, it probably would not have turned out well for Scotland had they seceded, but you know what? Go ahead, free Scotland. Freed South Ossetia, freed Transnistria, free whatever other secessionist group there is. Like, go ahead, get your freedom. Or at least, think you're getting your freedom when you're really just, trading one master for another. But there are some really stupid reasons to secede. And that's the point of the article that I'm about to read to you that comes from newswatch33.com, which is a news station somewhere in South Carolina, I believe, but I'm not sure what station, but it's Newswatch 33. And they report about a week ago is when this article came out. It came across my news feed a couple days ago, and I've not had a chance to talk about it on the show. But let me get into the article here from about a week ago. They write, Nikki Haley, the governor of South Carolina, has announced that she's in support of removing the Confederate battle flag from the state's Capitol grounds following the recent shooting that occurred in Charleston. Now, this sort of ties into one of the upcoming questions on Wednesday that I will get into a little bit more in depth. But the South Carolina legislature had a committee hearing. It was actually the Senate. And I don't remember if it was a committee hearing or if it was on the full floor of the Senate that they were voting on legislation that would have removed the Confederate battle flag from the monument that's outside of the State House. So the governor of South Carolina is in favor of removing the flag from the monument. She said, "Today we are here to say it is time to move the flag from the Capitol grounds." And they report that she was heckled by onlookers. Haley has previously supported the existence of the flag on Capitol grounds in the past. However, recent events have prompted her to change her mind and focus on what is best for South Carolina. Charleston Mayor Joseph P. Riley also believes the flag should be removed as it is part of history and should no longer represent the modernization of South Carolina. Riley said, quote, "The time has come for the Confederate battle flag to move from a public position in front of the state capitol to a place of history." That was in a televised news conference where he also said the flag was appropriated years and years ago as a symbol of hate. He says that the flag should move to a museum. Now, the flags in and of themselves are not really symbols of any emotion. Now, certain flags can invoke certain emotions, and that's based on the people that use the flag and the way in which they use the flag. But the flag itself is not a symbol of hate, unless somebody creates a flag that has the word hate on it and says this is the new symbol of hate, then that flag obviously would be the symbol of hate. But flags, again, in and of themselves are representations of ideas, and I'll talk a little bit more about this when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and Numery supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $3 per month or any amount of Bitcoin per month, thanks to the recurring payment options provided by Coinbase. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.
Hey, this is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends radio show. I've been working with computer programmer Derek Slopey to create Fiend Phone. I'm using Fiend Phone right now to talk with and record one of my co-hosts in real time. Take it, Davi.
Hey, this is Davi Barker, and I'm 1,000 miles away from Michael, but we sound like we're in the same room.
We sure do, Davi. So, Davi, please tell the nice people more about Fiend Phone.
Fiend Phone is free, open-source software that opens up a global world of possibilities for collaborative, high-quality remote voice media production, and I'm digging it.
People can try the Windows beta version of PhonePhone right now at PhonePhone.com. But we're also raising money to vastly improve PhonePhone and vastly improve independent talk media worldwide.
So go to PhonePhone.com to help out. Who will build the audio roads? We will, with your help.
That's PhonePhone.com. FEENPHONE.com. Foxtrot, Echo, Echo, November, Phone.com.
PhonePhone. I never knew remote audio could be this good.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. Now, why am I so interested in flags? I've got a lot of friends, or rather acquaintances, that I'll see on Facebook where they'll post various statuses of, if there were no flags, there would be no war, and other such things, basically claiming that the existence of a flag, and I find it ironic that some of them will wave like a black and yellow flag for anarcho-capitalism or voluntarism, but I digress. But the claim by some people is that flags in and of themselves cause people to go to war and try to like expand territory and empire. But that's not really fitting with history. The history of how flags came into existence was because war happened in the first place. And people wanted to be able to determine their soldiers from other people's soldiers from a distance. So, therefore, you have somebody carrying a banner. That's why a lot of times they were called bannermen, is because there would be somebody carrying a banner to represent the army, and it would have some sort of, specific sort of symbol on it that would let you know, like, this is this group or clan or whatever. So, flags were born out of war. War was not born out of the existence of flags. But, again, claiming that a certain flag is a symbol of hate is to take away all of the underlying reasons that flags exist. Flags exist, specifically the Confederate Battle flag existed so that people could tell which army was the army from the Confederate States and which army was the army for the United States. And the flag that is waving, it was never the national flag of the Confederate States of America. And, most people, mind blown, right? Because they're like, no, that's the Confederate flag. That was the flag. No, that was the flag of the military. The actual flag of the Confederate States of America, the initial one, was called the Stars and Bars. What most people think of, that blue cross with the white stars in it, that's not the Stars and Bars. That's oftentimes called the Southern Cross. The Stars and Bars, there were three thick bars. One at the top was red, one in the middle was white, one at the bottom was red. There was a canton up in the upper left-hand side on the hoist that was blue, and it had a number of stars in a circle equal to the number of states in the Confederate States. That flag was changed because from a distance it looked too similar to the flag of the United States, and people could not tell the troops apart. So then the battle flag came into existence, and initially it represented the military of the Confederate States of America. It's since been co-opted by groups that, they're hateful groups. I'm not going to say that they're not. But those groups, such as the KKK, also wave American flags. So, people are, the Confederate flag, it's the flag of the Klan. Well, so's the U.S. flag, but nobody's trying to ban that one. And nobody's trying to say that, that flag is a symbol of hate when there's been more oppression and war and hateful things that have happened, in the name of America than ever happened in the name of the Confederate States of America. So let me continue now with the article. The article here from Newswatch33.com. They report, despite the governor's new position on the Confederate battle flag, Members of South Carolina's House of Representatives believe the flag represents the culture of South Carolina and should not be removed because some people don't like seeing it. Now, before I continue here, if things are going to be removed because people don't like to see them, can we get rid of all monuments of war? Because those really offend me. And the reason they offend me is because they, in a way, they celebrate death and war and bloodshed. Even though the claim is we're honoring them. We're honoring the people who had to die. Well, no, people didn't have to die. Like, politicians made decisions to go send people in the military to go shoot and kill other people. Like, things could have been done differently. Nobody, quote unquote, had to die. So when you say we're honoring them, what you're unknowingly or unwittingly doing is encouraging other people. Well, if I want to be honored, then I need to join the military and go fight, and I'll be honored more if I die. So you're teaching people to become martyrs. And that is a horrible, horrible thing to do. You should not be teaching people that in order to be considered a hero, they have to go die on behalf of someone else. And that, to me, is very offensive. And I'll go ahead and admit it. I'm fairly certain the statute of limitations have run out. But there's a war monument in Keene, New Hampshire, in Central Square. In 2012, was October 1st of 2012, there was a Chalk the Police Day where it started because there was some little 5-year-old girl down in Richmond, Virginia, that her mom got in trouble because the daughter used some chalk on a rock at the beach. The beach, where there's water that comes in and washes things away. The beach. This girl, chalked a door on a rock at the beach and said it's a door to a magical land. And the mother wound up getting arrested and I think a $500 fine. And so some people said, you know what, we need to go chalk the police. And the initial point was to, chalk messages outside of police stations on the ground with chalk that washes away. It's not graffiti, it washes away. So in 2012, me and several other people, we were chalking outside of police stations in the middle of Central Square. And then I decided, you know what? Let me put a peace sign on the war monument. And I put a peace sign on the war monument. And because of where it was, there was a lip, and it just stayed for a long time. And then about a year ago, somebody chalked a peace sign over top of the one that I had put up in 2012. And then that started this whole thing to where, they're desecrating our war monument, and it's not appropriate to put peace signs on war monuments because war, and war's the opposite of peace. And then a couple weeks later, somebody got thrown into a fountain, broke his neck, broke, I think, an arm and a hip because he was chalking a smiley face in the middle of Central Square. So, horrible things happened after this because America, basically. So, if we're removing things that are offensive, and people were offended by a peace sign on a war monument, and they're like, we have to pressure wash this, and people should go to jail, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? I'm offended by the existence of this monument celebrating death, but they're never going to remove it. But let me just finish this article real quick from Watch News 30 or Newswatch 33. Apparently, some people are now saying that South Carolina should secede if the state legislature removes the battle flag from state grounds. And that's just absolutely a ludicrous reason to secede. There's more when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Why do they hate us? Is libertarianism compatible with Islam? Davi Barker answers these questions and more in Voluntary Islam and Other Essays. He advances the voluntarist cause with analysis of the confluence of values between Islam and libertarianism, as well as contemporary movements from the Tea Party to the Arab Spring. Voluntary Islam by Davi Barker is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. Bitcoin Not Bombs is a launching pad for nonprofits and social entrepreneurs into the financial freedom of the Bitcoin economy. Bitcoin Not Bombs offers premium publicity campaigns designed to facilitate an organization's adoption of Bitcoin as a payment system. Bitcoin Not Bombs is fully committed to being the hub of the nonprofit sector of the Bitcoin economy, maximizing the potential cross-promotion of all our clients and commercial partners. To learn more, visit bitcoinnotbombs.com. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, ExpressCoin, and Amazon, at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Now, let me explain real quick why it's a ludicrous reason to say we're going to secede because of something that the state legislature did, because that totally misses the point, right? Because the people here aren't saying, you know, we're going to have our town secede from the state of South Carolina if the legislature does X. They're saying that the state of South Carolina, the legislature of the state of South Carolina, if they vote to remove the battle flag from state grounds, should then vote to secede from the United States of America because the state legislature removed the battle flag from state grounds. And that just makes absolutely no sense. Like, the people here that are advocating secession because the battle flag might be removed, they're totally missing the point, because they're thinking that somehow, like, Washington, D.C. is making the legislature do something when it's the legislature themselves that are voting on this. And again, I'll get into this a little bit more on Wednesday, because there's a question about whether or not the flag is being banned or just removed from certain places. And there's absolute just like weird stuff going around in response to this kid, Dylan Roof, that shot some people. And like, there's the claims that he was, you know, a Confederate sympathizer or something. And like, every time I try to look into it, because I'm seeing so much mix of, like, you know, actual, you know, I'm using air quotes here, you know, actual news, and then the conspiracy theory claims, like, I don't know what to believe about the whole thing, but, like, some of it just doesn't make sense. Like, he got arrested and then they took him to Burger King before they went to jail. Like, that makes no sense. Especially when you consider that other people that, you know, like, they were selling loose cigarettes and they get choked to death on the side of the street. So, like, there's some things here that don't make sense. But I'm done talking about this for now. I'll talk about it a little bit more on Wednesday in the Ask Me Anything. But let's jump from Confederate flags to cakes. And why are we jumping to cakes from Confederate flags? Well, remember a while back there was the bakery in Oregon that refused to bake a cake for a same-sex couple. The same-sex couple found, like, the most conservative Christian bakery they could find for some unknown reason, and went in and said, we want you to bake our cake for our wedding. And the bakery said, no, not going to do it. Well, apparently now there's been a decision in that case. The story here comes from Huffington Post, and they write, the owners of an Oregon bakery must pay $135,000 in damages for refusing to bake a cake for a lesbian couple. That, according to a state court on Thursday. The Oregon Labor Commission, or rather Oregon Labor Commissioner Brad Avakian, agreed with a preliminary ruling that Sweet Cakes by Melissa illegally discriminated against a Portland couple in 2013 by turning down their request based on their sexual orientation. A judge had ordered owners Aaron and Melissa Klein to pay $75,000 in damages to Rachel Bowman Cry and another $60,000 to her wife, Laurel Bowman Cryer. And why one of them has an R at the end of their last name and the other one does not is either a typo or just something that the world will never know. The story here continues. The Kleins had argued it was against their Christian beliefs to participate in a same-sex marriage. Supporters had raised money for them earlier this year after an administrative judge imposed the penalty. Now, one thing that I think is kind of odd, and I cannot stress this enough, is the fact that some of these people that claim to be Christians, basically the only time that they really care about any type of sin is if the person is gay. So, for instance, they'll point to Leviticus where it says, a man's not to lie with another man, but then they forget that a few verses away, it talks about not eating shellfish. It talks about not mixing fabric in cloth. It talks about not growing multiple crops in the same field. There are other things, like you're not supposed to trim the corners of your hair. But yet, I've never heard a story about a supposed Christian bakery refusing to sell a cake to somebody because they eat crab legs. I've never heard a story about a Christian bakery refusing to sell someone a cake because they wear cotton wool blend clothing. I've never heard a story about a supposed Christian bakery refusing or even asking the question of, do you have more than one type of crop in your field? That question never gets asked. It's only the homosexuals that get discriminated against by these supposed Christian bakeries. And I need to reread the Bible because I've never seen, and I've read it through several times, but I've never seen where it says, do not give a cake to a gay man. I've never seen where it says, do not give a cake to a man that lies with another man. I've never seen where it says, don't give a cake to a woman that lies with another woman. I've never seen that. So maybe I need to find whatever version of the Bible they're using to see where it says to discriminate against people that you don't like. What I have seen is where Yeshua says, love one another. A new command I give to you, that you love one another as God loves you. That's how he will know that you're my disciple, when you love one another. And loving one another doesn't mean you refuse to serve them because they do something you don't like. Now, obviously, you could do that and say, hey, I love you, but I can't take your money, and here's why. Now, if you change X, Y, and Z, then maybe we can do business. But I've not seen that happen here, and also the way laws are written, and quite frankly, I think that the laws need to be changed. If somebody wants to be a bigot and just call your business Bigot Cakes, and then people will know that there's certain people you won't sell cakes to. And I would know not to go shop at Bigot Cakes because I don't want to give money to somebody that I know is a bigot. So if Bigot Cakes should exist, and they should have a sign out front saying, here's all the people that we won't serve. List them by name, by group, whatever, and then everybody that doesn't want to do business with a bigot can decide that they're not going to go order a wedding cake from Bigot Cakes because Bigot Cakes is run by bigots. But under current laws, you can't do that. Now, there are some people that say, well, we've got the Religious Freedom Act that allows us to discriminate. But again, show me, I want you to show me the scripture where it says, do not give a cake to a gay man. I want you to show me the scripture where it says, don't give a marriage license to somebody you disagree with. Show me those scriptures, because I don't see them. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Don't forget, every Wednesday is the Ask Me Anything. Send those questions, AMA@fppradio.com.